Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Danielle here from the Fertile Spirit, which is CNY's patient support program. I'm here with one of my favorite coaches in our program who does things outside of our program as well, Amanda Ehrman. She can tell you more about herself, but she is a licensed clinical hypnotherapist. She's studying depth psychology and counseling. People have been working with her over these last months and have had really beautiful experiences. So I thought I would have her come on and just kind of talk about what it is to do this work, how we work with people, the kinds of tools we use. We can talk a bit more about hypnotherapy and what that looks like, because people can hear that and be like, whoa, what is that? That's, so we'll have a little chat about this, and we'll probably hop on over to the CNY Fertility Instagram after this just to continue the conversation. I invite you guys who are listening, if you have questions about whether it's about hypnotherapy or about coaching or about working more on like the emotional, physical side of a fertility journey. I know there's a lot of information that you can get from the doctors and the nurses here, but I know we all believe at CNY that it's mind, body, spirit, everything's connected. So we kind of are the voice of that. And so please feel free to ask questions or to share your story as we go. So anyway, with that, hi, Amanda.
Hello, Danielle. So happy to be on here with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm really happy to have you. And it has been like beautiful to hear about the work that you've been doing with our clients at the Fertile Spirit. Can you, I guess, I want to, even on this, like, I want to learn more about how hypnotherapy works. Like, I have a sense of it. I've received it before. But maybe if you want to maybe talk about how you got involved with doing this work, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Oh boy. So hypnotherapy. I mean, I guess the best place to start with my story is at the beginning, which is I was drawn to hypnotherapy as a healing modality kind of on my own journey long before it had even occurred to me how beautifully it would integrate with one's fertility journey. I kind of came to it after spending a good amount of time in talk therapy, which I found to be really beautiful and beneficial and served a purpose for a time. But I was feeling just like a lot of roadblocks in my life, met with a lot of manifesting stress, anxiety, sleep disturbances, and somebody floated hypnotherapy. And I was like, wow, out of all the alternative and more traditional healing modalities I thought I was well versed in, hypnosis was something entirely off my radar. And so I was totally open, eager, and willing to try anything. And so just really went in with an open mind, but also had done no kind of background research on what I was getting myself into. And immediately upon my first session was just so taken with the process that began with simply asking questions about who I was outside of even my presenting issues, like who I am at my core. What do I believe in? What do I believe in that maybe I've forgotten or feel disconnected from? And there was something even about those questions that felt like such an exhale and an opportunity for like my shoulders to drop and to trust the process. And from there, experiencing, more of like a hypnotic session, which to like kind of apply to the story and also as a sidebar, is really like a personalized guided meditation is how I like to describe it. And through direct and more indirect positive suggestions, the idea became that the hypnotherapist I was working with at the time could help me get out of my conscious mind where I was feeling so held and holding on to what all that I had been feeling, experiencing, and believing about myself, and start to become increasingly familiar with perhaps an alternative perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And something more graceful, compassionate, accepting, and positive, if you will, at that.
Okay.
And the shifts I saw within myself were both like tectonic and slow and steady. So much so to the point that after about, I don't know, at max like 6 months of working with my hypnotherapist, I was like, there's no two ways about it. I need to go and learn how to be able to provide this support to others. And so I went to school for hypnotherapy. It was a year-long program. It was every day. It included learning about how it applies to so many specific presenting issues, as well as how it can benefit anybody open to having the experience. And so that was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now. And it's just been a beautiful kind of blossoming journey in recognizing for myself through the people that find me or who I come across, in how hypnosis, hypnotherapy really is so relevant to anybody open to a healing journey.
I'm just fully improvising here. So like we don't have to go in this direction, but I still think like when I hear hypnotherapy, even though I've like experienced it to some extent, I still think we're going to be like, ooh, and there's like crystal balls and, you know, and I think that in some ways, like some people are really open to that and excited about it. And other people are like, how is that going to help me? So I think I'm curious. And if we can't do it like this, that's totally fine. But could we even try, like with you and me, like what some of those questions might look like? Or is there any kind of version of it that we could maybe do here to give people more of like a working sense of what it's like? And I know it's not going to be comprehensive. And if not, that's fine too. Truly improvising, everybody.
Yeah, no, I love that you took it there. So here's what I'm thinking. I think, why don't we maybe towards the end, we could even do like a very abbreviated kind of induction.
Okay.
But I would love to even speak to what you just brought up, right? Which is this idea of like, it sounds pretty woo-woo, if you will. And I'm so happy you brought that in, because that's something that, yes, while there's a part of me that loves kind of this open surrender to something, you know, so unseen and spiritual and whatever that means to anybody. What I love about hypnotherapy is that it actually is so much more grounded. It's grounded in the body. It's grounded in the sense that the person under hypnosis is always and entirely in control. When you hear words like in trance, as an example, what that means, at least in the work I do, is simply that you're in a heightened state of both relaxation and awareness. But you can open your eyes at any time, and it's not going to take you more than a beat, you know, to be entirely attuned to your surroundings. You might think of it as like waking up from a nap, where it might take you a little bit of a moment because you're drifting kind of out of that dreamy state. But that's as out of it, if you will, that one would ever be. Okay. And so what I find so powerful and beautiful, that here it is, a person entirely in control, is simply being offered an opportunity to relax their body, from there relax their mind, to be open to these positive suggestions that are designed only ever for their highest good. And so if I'm working with a woman, wherever she is, let's say on her fertility journey, whether that's she's having a lot of big feelings about trying to conceive, or struggling to conceive, or is pregnant and, you know, still having a lot of fear, stress, anxiety, or is miscarried and doesn't know how to hold in that grief. hypnosis in a lot of ways works the same way, no matter what you're coming in with, which is this idea that it's providing the space for acceptance, for feelings, and to recognize that whatever you're feeling is only and always valid, but perhaps not the way you always have to feel.
Mm-hmm. So it's like holding both, being able to
Holding
be
both.
Yeah. I was just having a session with a client about that today. And I mean, if you watch the language that we use, but I guess I think it's so valuable and important to, like, I always talk about metabolizing our feelings. So it's like, if you're feeling grief or you're feeling rage, like, to just shove it down. It's like we need to, like, fully digest and release our feelings. And I think there's it's cultural. It's this kind of like, I'm going to be strong enough, I'm going to do it. And there's a fear that if we let ourselves feel the grief or the anger, that we're going to, like, lose it and, like, lose our grip on everything. And that means we're giving up or we're not staying positive. But my experience is that, like, actually there's such a release in actually feeling it, and that it almost creates more space for the broader perspective. And not only that, but, like, having an emotional release is also a release in the body of endorphins and oxytocin and all these other things that help regulate our nervous systems. So yeah, I love that idea with this hypnotherapy of being able to, like, hold both. And you said something when you were first talking about how you were speaking, and maybe you could say more about this, like when you had your first session with somebody, that I don't know what language you use, but, like, you were speaking, like, the actual, like, the truth, like you were being asked questions about the truth of, like, of your essential core.
Mm-hmm.
And how that was what you noticed yourself saying in that moment was, like, different from the kind of tape or monologue you had running in your head. What led you into doing that work? Is that?
Yeah, well, I think, and understandably so, especially when a person is coming in for support. More often than not, right, there's a presenting problem or issue, or what they have determined is a presenting issue, right? And so while I unquestionably want to honor that and address it and speak to it, to also zoom, whether I think of it as, like, zooming out or pulling back, and supporting a person to recognize they are so much more than that one thing that they're coming to see me saying, or they're saying is who they are, or over identifying with this is all I am, is this problem I'm having.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's like we come back to that thing that brought them to me in the first place, but to also help kind of reestablish their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally find that so much of every individual's personal power is in realigning or reconnecting with their values, with, their beliefs, their capacity to trust or to love, even if those are feeling really tender or vulnerable, right? But just kind of even allowing, even in that, like, I'm open to leaning or stepping more into that. Mm-hmm. Identifying as that feels too scary or too much. And that's okay too. But to say, can we just, like, open the door a crack?
Right. Can we maybe like go through some hypothetical kinds of, like, specifically for someone who's, doing IVF or preparing to do it, or having, who's maybe recently had a loss or something? Can we maybe just, like, talk about how you might, with this hypnotherapy approach, address some of those concerns?
Yeah.
and also, if anyone's listening, I know Melissa is listening and saying hi. If anyone has questions, like and how it would apply to you, feel free to put them in the chat, the questions, and we can also see how they might be addressed. So let's say there's someone who really wants to be pregnant or have a child, and they have, learned that they are struggling, that their body, they've done IUI, it's not working, they're going to move to IVF. There's a lot of fear about, how many eggs am I going to retrieve? How much is this going to cost? Is it going to be ever going to work for me? What's this going to do to my relationship? All my friends around me already have babies and they don't, and I just feel like so scared. I almost swore. I've been like swearing a lot lately, like a sailor. Whoops.
Keep it real.
Like keeping it real. But like that they're I'm really channeling this person here, that they're just feeling so scared of like, I don't know if this is going to work. And I can't control the outcome. And all I want is to just know. And maybe I'm a failure. I mean, these are the kinds of thoughts that are maybe going on for them.
Yeah, I think that you just presented a very relatable case.
Sure.
Or story. And I think, where I can be a guide or a support to a woman having that kind of experience of these excessive worrying. And, I think oftentimes associated with that, I find a lot of self-doubt, right? And self-blame tends to be present. And so working with, using hypnotherapy as a supportive modality to both consciously and subconsciously, and I'll circle back to what I mean by that in a moment, but to help start overcoming a lot of these limiting beliefs that a woman might have developed about herself, particularly as that, pertains to, why is this so hard? It seems so easy for everybody else. Is something wrong with me? Am I broken? Am I less of a woman? Is something that like came up recently, right? And something else you said, this idea of control. And oof, I mean, that's a lifetime's work right there, is like relinquishing control, right? But how can we surrender to a degree or simply soften to this idea that I can only control so much, right? And particularly if we're talking to the CNY community and the fertile spirit, we're talking about women who are likely either already or in the process of beginning to do all they can to support themselves from a physiological perspective. And so even when all of that is being addressed, what's going on physically, how much, right, stress, anxiety, self-doubt plays a role on our overall health. It's like you talked about in your introduction, this idea that we at Fertile Spirit so wholeheartedly believe that this is all a woman's well-being, a human's well-being is mind, body, spirit. And so the more that we can even help to reduce and release some of this stress, some of this fear-based thinking that becomes like so physiologically heavy, whether it's not even necessarily about removing it completely, giving it space, giving it a voice, but then starting to let it go. Like, taking letting some of the steam out of like a pressure cooker, if you will. And so I think I might have digressed a little bit, but I had mentioned something about like the conscious and subconscious mind. And I think that even if that's not entirely on topic, I think that's something really important to come back to, which is this idea that our mind is made up of our conscious and subconscious. And if you were to research hypnotherapy, studies will say that the subconscious mind is actually like 85+% of actually why we do what we do, which means that the conscious mind, which is like the 10 to 15% left, is actually where logic, reason, willpower, decision-making, analytical thinking lives. So it's actually incredibly lopsided. So when we're talking or we're getting stuck in these thinking patterns, positive or negative, but they do have a tendency to skew negative. And by negative, right, I mean that the fears overriding the trust, that inner critic, that self-doubt or self-blame, that's all in this actually like really small percentage of our mind. And in hypnosis, or I'll take it a step back. So the subconscious mind, however, which now we're looking at as the majority, does not have all of that logic and reason. What it has is what's familiar. And so when a lot of these like negative or ruminating thoughts have become familiar, that's what the subconscious mind holds on to. So that's why when a person comes in and is like, I've been trying to change my thinking and I've been like aggressively and actively trying to make changes. I've been changing my diet and I'm trying to work out, or maybe I want to be working out or changing my diet and I keep just not being able to. And I'm so fed up with myself. And it's like, I have all of the knowledge and all of the information. And yet I keep like self-destructing.
Yeah.
Well, that's the subconscious mind saying, hey, well, that's because you're trying to do something new. And I don't do new. I like what I already know, because what I know is familiar, and what's familiar is safe. So the subconscious mind, if you think of it as it's always acting in your best interest, but what it thinks your best interest is what's familiar. Because again, familiar is safe. So what we're also doing in hypnosis is starting to reprogram the subconscious mind. We're dropping in this sense of comfortability with getting relaxed, with offering alternative suggestions to these negative beliefs you've been telling yourself over and over, incorporating more healing terms, more loving experiences through visualizations or simply like body relaxation scans, so that they become increasingly familiar. And then you start having these more positive conscious experiences as your subconscious mind becomes more comfortable and familiar with these positive ideas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation. And just, I think so much about how the conscious mind is really, it's just trying to keep us alive. It's a survival mechanism. So we do tend to, we're always, how we were, our brains evolved was to like ward off danger, to protect ourselves. So what ends up getting the tape that comes up in our mind is just, it just is inherently often more negative because it's trying to protect us, but that is sending this message to our subconscious, which is like incredibly powerful, and we're not really in touch with it. And that's kind of then like everything's reinforced. It's like a reinforcement loop that happens. So I can see where kind of inviting these more positive, expansive thoughts can really make a big difference. And I just want to reiterate for everybody, like, as we've kind of already touched on, but just that like when the thinking changes, the physiology changes because our hormone levels change. There's less adrenaline and cortisol. Our circadian rhythms might even change as a result of having less stress, and our nervous system starts to regulate, and we start to live more in the rest and digest, parasympathetic, and less in fight or flight. And as we know, like fight or flight is not helpful. It's not helpful for your fertility to be in fight or flight. So I think we're going to head over to Instagram and continue this conversation. But I just want to let people know that like the Fertile Spirit is here for CNY clients, people like Amanda, coaches and doulas who are just expert at what they do and offer so much for one-on-one support, couple support. We have functional medicine to help balance hormones naturally with Jennifer Waters, who's been with CNY for like 12 years. We have people who can help with health and wellness. We even have men's support now. And as of, I think it's August 23rd, we're going to be starting our membership. So you can actually sign up for that now. And I'll be giving a code out for 3 free months for CNY clients so that you can be a part of this work on a regular basis and in this community, and that these messages, even from listening to this today, like talk about impacting the subconscious mind. I mean, everything is kind of woven in. So just know that we're out here to do this. And thank you for listening. And Amanda, thanks for joining on Facebook. So we'll
Absolutely. Thanks to everyone out there.
Yeah. Okay. See you guys soon. Bye.